Welcome, friends and neighbors, family and strangers, to Forever West. Today we're going to be talking about Jesse James. There's no other Wild West legend out there who is as polarizing as this noted desperado. You either love him or you hate him. He is painted by some as a sociopathic ex-Confederate guerrilla fighter, and by others as a heroic Robin Hood of the 1860s post-war working class, robbing from the exploitative bankers and railroad barons. In the documentable history of Jesse James, you can find supporting evidence for just about any opinion you choose to have of the desperado. But the truth is probably more complex, and in between, than many are comfortable with. What is above dispute, however, is that Jesse James has earned his place at the forefront when it comes to the legends of the American West. Join us as we piece together the story of one of the most famous figures of the Old West. Both of Jesse's parents were from Kentucky. His father, Robert James, was a Baptist preacher who had graduated from Georgetown College in 1843. Jesse's mother was Zerelda Cole. Zerelda's family ran a popular tavern outside of Lexington, Kentucky. Both Robert and Zerelda suffered loss at an early age. Both of Robert's parents died when he was about 9 years old, and he was sent to live with his sister, Mary Mims. Zerelda's father, James Cole, died when she was just about 2 years of age, and when her mother decided to remarry to a man named Robert Thomason, they left little Zerelda in the care of her uncle, James Lindsay. As a young girl, Zerelda was said to be a wild child. One old-time resident later recalled that she was, quote, full of fun, a good dancer, and not afraid of the devil himself. While Zerelda may not have feared the devil, in 1838, Robert James answered the heavenly call to take up spiritual arms against the old serpent. The young man became a student at Georgetown College, pursuing a vocation in the Christian ministry. While taking part in a series of revival meetings at Lexington, Robert met Zerelda Cole, an initial meeting which would culminate in marriage just under 6 months later. Robert James and Zerelda Cole were married on December 28, 1841. By spring of 1842, the James couple joined Zerelda's mother and stepfather in Clay County, Missouri. In addition to taking up farming, Robert soon became the preacher of the nearby New Hope Baptist Church. By all accounts, Robert was a fine preacher, sincere and zealous in his faith. Pioneer of the infamous altar call, Robert had a flair for finding any and all unbelievers in the congregation on any particular Sunday, calling them forward to the front of the church and spiritually browbeating them with prayer until they found Jesus. One story is told of a man named Henderson sitting by himself during the service one Sunday morning. Pastor Robert James finally notices Henderson during the sermon, and as Henderson sees the spiritually discerning stare of Preacher James alight on his unsaved person, the unbelieving man jumps out of a nearby window, escaping a forced conversion. On January 10, 1843, Robert and Zerelda had their first child, a son, and named him Alexander Franklin James, who they called Frank. They had a second child the next year, Robert Jr., who died within days of his birth. On September 5, 1847, a third child was born to the couple, and they named him Jesse Woodson James. Robert James continued his work among Baptist congregations, organizing revivals and camp meetings that would eventually come to be known as the Liberty Baptist Association. Zerelda and Robert had a daughter, Susan, in November of 1849, and when plans began to form for a local college, Robert James was instrumental in its organization as well, and became a trustee and founder of William Jewell College. Centered in Liberty, Missouri, the school opened its doors to eager students in January of 1850. The family, it seemed, was doing well for itself. When young Jesse James was just 2 years old, in April of 1850, Robert James felt the Lord call him to California. The gold rush had kicked off a year or two prior, and caravans were making their way to that territory in search of riches. There are many theories as to why Robert decided to leave home to go halfway across the country to do the Lord's work. Some said he got a spell of gold fever himself. Others said he was getting away from Zerelda's constant nagging. Others seemed to really think it was just as the preacher himself said. He felt a call to minister to the people going out there. It's said that upon his departure, 2-year-old Jesse clung to his father's leg and begged him not to go. While we don't know for certain why he left, we do know that Robert James never made it back. Zerelda received reports that her husband had died of cholera in September of 1850. Like vultures circling their prey, creditors and auctioneers began circling the newly widowed Zerelda's property, livestock, and slaves. An inventory was made of the entire James estate, and one of young Jesse James's earliest memories may have been of his neighbors and townsfolk assembling at his home in January of 1851 and taking all of his family's property. Zerelda was left with some utensils, a bed, and some livestock to survive on. Given women's rights in the 19th century, Zerelda James had zero claim on her husband's estate. All of the property of Robert James went to the children, Frank, Jesse, and Susan. Seeing as how they were minors, a guardian was appointed, a nearby relative named Tillman West. By February of the next year, young Jesse James would witness another auction at his home, where the vultures returned, this time claiming the farming implementation that had been left to Zerelda the last time, on which she had expected to survive. The James family was now well and truly destitute. Options were limited for a widow in that age. Zerelda knew that to survive, she would have to find another husband. She found a willing suitor in the person of an older, rough-around-the-edges widower named Benjamin Sims. Quite likely the first father figure that Jesse James would ever have concrete and definitive memories of, Benjamin Sims wanted nothing to do with Frank, Jesse, or Susan. The siblings went to live with their guardian, Mr. West, while Zerelda moved in with Mr. Sims. While we don't know much when it comes to specifics, Benjamin Sims and Zerelda James were not a good match. Coupled with the fact that her children lived away from her, and Sims wanted nothing to do with them, Zerelda began taking steps to secure a divorce. She left the Sims home and moved in with the West family to be with her children once more. But before she could secure a divorce from Sims, her husband solved the problem himself by dying. Almost 2 years later, Zerelda married a third and final time, to a doctor named Reuben Samuel. Reuben had gone to the Cincinnati Medical College in Ohio and had been practicing for a short time when he married Zerelda. He soon gave up his medical career to farm the property. If that sounds crazy to modern ears, it really wasn't that shocking to 19th century sensibilities, as the medical profession was not thought much of then, and the occupation of farmer was much more respectable. Jesse James was not even 10 years old yet when Zerelda married Dr. Samuel in September of 1855, yet he had already lost a father, encountered 2 stepfathers, seen his family's belongings auctioned off not once but twice, and had to live for some years with a family that was not his own. Reuben Samuel was a more agreeable and docile husband, and thus was a better match for the overbearing, take-charge character of Zerelda. Mrs. Samuel now had a husband Her children were back under her roof, and they once again had their own farm, their own home. Life was finally starting to settle down. Unfortunately for the Samuels and all other Americans in the early 1860s, life was about to be anything but settled down. Thank you all so much for watching our first installment of The Real Jesse James. Stay tuned, we've got more parts coming. In the next part, we delve into Jesse's time in the Civil War. Until then, take care.